Hey, what's going on, Minnesota Viking fans? Welcome to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle Smith. I am joined by Adam Carlson. What is up, sir? How are you?
Hey, doing all right, feeling a little bit better. I'm really interested to see how this draft's going to go. So that's the next thing coming up on the radar, and hopefully it'll be a good time.
I'm excited, man. The draft is 1 week away. Kyle West is with us, too. We got all three guys here this week. How are you, man?
Hey, I am doing great. And what are you talking 1 week away? The WNBA draft is going on right now.
Yeah.
For the future champions in Minnesota.
Yeah, the Minnesota Lynx.
There you go.
We said it in the group
Is
chat.
that them?
That's them.
That's
Yeah.
it.
There you go.
We said it in the group chat starting this about an hour ago on the show. That's the only franchise in Minnesota that can actually beat and win at everything. Ugh. Scott, what's up, dude? Glad you could join us, man.
Adam, you were quick to point out there was some major news article a couple years back that said, like, Minnesota hasn't won a major national sports title in X amount of years, and you were like, not true. The Minnesota Lynx won a championship. So the drought is not in Minnesota. You cannot claim us.
Agreed.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining in, Scott. We're all here. We're doing well. I'm feeling healthy. I hope you guys are feeling healthy. I actually did a home workout about an hour ago, and I hate my life right now. Everything hurts, but man, feels good to like be able to get some physical activity in and kind of wind down, even though fortunately we're all still stuck inside. But man, the draft is here, guys. We're about to go into the NFL draft, and it's going to be weird next week. We were just talking about this.
This is such a weird draft.
Isn't it going to be just the weirdest
Skype
calls? And I was listening to, you guys know I'm always going to promote the show. I was listening to Levitar today, and it's like they make fun of Dave Gettleman of the Panthers and the Giants. Is he with the Panthers now? And they're like, some of these guys don't even know how to turn their computer on, and they're going to have to make huge financial and business decisions on drafting players on a time format. And I can't wait to see who messes it up.
I can't wait for some team to like hit the wrong button and have a camera face directly at their big board to where you can just see you can see exactly who the Cleveland Browns are targeting up on the screen right there. Like, it's going to be something stupid like that is going to happen. I can't wait. It's like free entertainment, man.
Hopefully the trial run goes well.
Yeah, they're talking about that today, too. They're going to do a trial mock draft on Monday. Obviously, they're not going to name players, but they're like, hey, here's a timer. Make sure you can send it in correctly. You want player X, blah, blah, blah. I feel like they should have been doing this already. But also, good point on that show, they said, guys, all you got to do is Google the addresses of these billionaires or wherever else. If we could hack into their server and pull it.
Don't do it.
You got to think there's at least one or two really good hackers out there who are mad sports fans, and they could cause some problems. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, Dave Gettleman's going to be at his computer pecking away with his one finger. And they put the kick in, or they put the pick in for the first round, and it's a punter. And you're like,
and some of these GMs and stuff, they live way out in the country. They got big ranches and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to have great internet out there, so we might get some horse quality, because I don't know if you guys watched that horse game on ESPN, but that was brutal.
I didn't. I heard about it. Was it the connection?
What happened? Fill me in. What happened?
It was like they filmed it on potatoes.
Oh,
you couldn't even see if the shots went in.
That's so bad. But I think in this time, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, with what's going on, like even last night going to bed, I subscribed to ESPN Plus, and I watched a UFC pay-per-view. Now, I already knew who was going to win, but I didn't watch a lot of the undercard fights. We're just so thirsty for sports right now at any given minute. This is just going to dominate next week, and I'm so excited about it, even if there's a crap connection.
On last Monday, or earlier in this week on Monday, when Monday Night Football aired the Vikings and the Packers, the Brett Favre game, came home and watched the end half of that game, and it was like the first time I'd ever watched football. I'm like, just got sucked right into it. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I've never seen professional
Monday Night Raw. They're an essential business.
Yeah,
and with all the cuts that WWE made, the two former Vikings are still there.
Brock Lesnar was never getting cut.
No.
Neither is
And
Roman
Roman
Reigns.
ain't going anywhere.
No.
Ryan's having a good time tonight. He said he's having some drinks, playing Madden, quarantine heaven. I'm jealous, man.
Good
I've done that
stuff.
once. I have an Xbox. I played it like twice, and the one time I did, I binged for like 4 days, and I made the Vikings win a Super Bowl because that's the only way it's happened so far. I feel you, Ryan. This is the perfect time to do that.
So there's another thing about the draft that I'm looking forward to seeing now. Well, how is this going to work? So EA is doing like virtual versions of certain players that are going to be reacting on screen. Have you guys heard about this?
No.
Yeah, so EA is using like the Madden football engine, and they're doing like a virtual version of like Tua or someone, and they have all these different like reactions for them, and certain players have said like, I want this reaction. So when they get drafted, you're going to see like a virtual version of Tua come across the screen and do like the shake hands with the commissioner thing.
So when the Dolphins take Tua, he's going to get all sad.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, this draft is gonna be weird, and I can't wait for it. This is like we're in Bizarro land, and I can't wait for it.
It's for me. It's like the comment section when you go on. They have the one is like old Michael Jackson, the Thriller era, where he's just like eating popcorn in the theater out of there. The other one was it's the black kid who sits down and he just like sits down all dramatic and he just pulls up a thing of popcorn and he's like, what the fuck this is about? I can't wait because I'm just so thirsty for sports, but there's gonna be a snafu somewhere, if not more, multiple ones. So hopefully it's not the Vikings.
Talking about getting going again with no fans in attendance and one group on the field on the tour at a time, or on the link at a time.
Right.
So I'm glad there's sports are trying.
Pat McAfee was talking about, what was it, like Korean baseball or something is going to be starting. They're going to be playing like Korean baseball. And he's like, I'm going to be so interested for the first quarter until I remember that I don't like American baseball, let alone Korean baseball. but for that first inning, man, I'm going to be sitting here glued to my TV. I can't wait. Give me all the weird shit right now. Anything other than coronavirus news.
God, that's so funny. I forgot I don't like American baseball.
Yeah, right?
I'll say this, man. Going to a baseball game, like, it's a lot of fun. It's so long, though. Jesus Christ, man. 9 innings.
You need to go with friends. You need to have some distractions. You got to have a lot of stuff.
I took my dad to the local one in Charlotte, where I'm from, the Charlotte Knights. I believe they feed into the Chicago White Sox, and that sadness factory. Jesus Christ, they're terrible. But it was just the experience, like grabbing a beer, grabbing a hot dog, and like hanging out with my dad. You can't beat it, and especially when you get good seats, like you don't have to sit directly in the sun. But I say the same thing for hockey. I like hockey more than baseball, obviously, but watching it on television doesn't do any justice compared to going to the game. I don't care. I'd watch cricket at this point. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So I hate to shift here, but it was only 4 or 5 days ago. We need to talk about it here because we didn't do it last week, I don't believe. Former Vikings quarterback Tavares Jackson passed away recently, and we have to give homage to him and say condolences to his family. And it's a sad, sad day. He was 36 years old, wife and kids, and don't know the nature of the car accident. Don't really need to. Just know that it was a car accident, but just taken way too young. It's really sad. And for me being a fairly new Vikings fan for about 10, 11 years ago, I remember watching him. I remember watching him in passing in the start of my military career. I started in 2007. And when we would have games on, I remember him coming around in those first couple of years that I was in. So me personally, I just wanted to say, put some respect on his name. That's a Super Bowl champion quarterback, first of all. But, yeah, we had to bring that up, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Tavares Jackson.
Pass.
T-Jack, what? He had flashes in Minnesota where you seen his potential. You could see why he was a second-round pick. He had a game, I think, against Arizona where he threw for like 4 touchdowns. He was always kind of like in the vein of the Michael Vick, the scrambling quarterback. He was mobile. He could run. he had a he was like Uncle Rico. He could chuck the ball over the mountains. He had a nice deep pass, but he wasn't never really the most accurate quarterback. But now is not really the time to get into that whole debate, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. It is what it is. He was always fun. I always used to pick him up in Madden. When you would do like the fantasy draft. Because you could always draft like your receivers and your running backs and your corners. You could always get them early, and then you could pick T-Jack up in like the later rounds, and like he was always a fun quarterback to use in that game. So
yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. It is Minnesota Vikings related news. They drafted him, so condolences to your family, and just had to throw that out there. I know. Checking on the Viking Age and checking through our notes and what's happened since we recorded last. I think we recorded last Wednesday, something like that. I
think so too.
Yeah.
I thought he was a better quarterback than Christian Ponder, and I mean, like, that's not saying much, but like, I definitely would have taken him over Ponder.
Would agree with that.
Yeah.
So we're going to shift back to draft talk and stuff here because this is going to be the focus of the show. If you guys weren't aware, that's pretty much the main thing we're going to talk about tonight. I'm talking to Ryan here, and he's talking about Chase Young from Ohio State. Said, let's throw in number 22, number 58, Anthony Harris for number 3, Okuda or a snowball's chance in July for Young. I with Ron Rivera being with the Redskins and they have a number 2 pick, Joe Burrow's going to the Bengals at 1. We know that. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Chase Young is the best player in this draft. That's what I've heard. I've watched him play several times last season. He is a monster, and I don't think that's going to happen. So he's not going to fall. You have to go to number 2. Ron Rivera's there now in Washington, but a 22, 5, and Harris for number 3 for a corner. I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't do that. This draft, and this is just me personally, Ryan, I'm not trying to pick on you. This draft has a shitload of corners and a shitload of wide receivers. So yeah, Okuda's great. I watched him do his drills and stuff, and I've never seen a dude move like that, so technically sound on a dime. But I would just wait and get the value where we're at. What do you guys think?
I think if the Lions do move their pick, it's going to be for a quarterback because those are those premium spots where teams will move up for a quarterback. And we're going to see Burrow. We're going to see Tua. We're going to see a lot of teams that are looking for quarterbacks early on. And I think that we're going to see several quarterbacks taken in this draft, and we're going to see teams absolutely panicking to get the ones they want. Detroit, of course, Matt Stafford's getting a little older, so they might look at drafting an heir apparent. I don't think that's going to happen yet, but I also think the team has a lot of holes they need to fill out. And if they can get a team that has a couple first-round picks and trade back and grab a couple first-rounders and fill in a couple of their needs instead of just one, I think that'd be the smart thing for them. So I have no doubt that number 3 pick is on the table, and I don't think that Minnesota is going to be interested in moving up to it because that draft capital, the number of needs they have, the way they acquired their picks early on, I could see them drafting at rounds 1 through 3 and then using all their later round picks to try to move up because that's how talented this draft class is. There's a lot of depth, and they're going to see a lot of players starting to fall that they have higher grades on. And I think Rick Spielman's going to be trying to make any move he can to get the guys he wants in that locker room this year.
I think this year's draft, you're going to see some teams, like you said, Adam, they're going to be doing some reaching for some talent early on because this draft is just the nature of it and how it's going to unfold and how unusual pro days were and not being able to like interview players face to face. I think you're going to look at teams who are going to say, we have a short list of players that we're comfortable taking in the first round. How do we move up to get these 10 guys that we're comfortable with? Even if we don't necessarily think that there may be a top 5 pick, we want to move up into the draft to snag guys that we're comfortable with, even if other teams or fans perceive that it's a reach.
And as you're saying, there are positions where it's extremely shallow past an elite talent. Offensive tackle, past Wirfs, I don't think there's a an offensive tackle in this draft that really is going to be a first rounder at left tackle. I don't think there is.
Mm-hmm.
So teams are going to be fighting to get that left tackle. I mean, you're going to see teams wanting to move up, and the more he starts to kind of trickle down the board, you're going to see teams stressing and getting worried that he's going to get taken. I wouldn't be surprised to see a team move up to 3 to get him.
Interesting.
I'm listening to you guys. I'm doing some more draft research because we're going to talk about wide receivers now, or at least talk about what Scott was talking about here. Adam, I'm looking at some of the stuff on your boy T. Higgins. I like it.
He's a really good fit.
I like it a lot. You know what sells me on this kid? I'm looking through. I'm going to do a little bit today, guys, just a spoiler because I am terrible at this. But I have a lot of downtime at work now because of the coronavirus. I did some film study, air quotes, I watched some YouTube, on a cornerback that I know has been projected to go to the Vikings quite often. Not like an Okuda who's going to go in like the top 10, and a wide receiver that's going to land to us, not Jerry Jeudy, not CeeDee Lamb. They'll be gone before 12 and 13. But some prospects that are very good chance the Vikings will have at least an attempt to get him. But I'm looking at T. Higgins, and you know what I like? 6'4". I'm looking down here at Chase Claypool from Notre Dame, 6'4", 4.42. Yes, please. And I'm looking here at what Scott said for like a Julio. I mean, I don't know if there's a Julio Jones in this class, but I know that this draft class in particular, I mean, this might be the best wide receiver draft class ever. That's what they keep saying. So
what's interesting is how many of these wide receivers could be one-trick ponies.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of wide receivers that are just specialists. Like there's the long ball specialist, there's the jump ball specialist, there's the route running specialist. And yeah, of course, there's going to be players that do things better than others, and they're going to be better fits for teams than other players. And that's one reason why I think T. Higgins is such a good fit for Minnesota. And I think that a lot of teams are going to sleep on him because of the big play appeal of the home run hitters in this draft.
So what style of receiver do you think would be the best fit in Minnesota? Do you want a smaller, quicker guy? Or do you want like a bigger bodied, like outside receiver?
I've always wanted that bigger bodied receiver in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I know that the Vikings have been throwing those fades to Kyle Rudolph, and it's obvious when they do because he's the only big guy running to a corner. But if they can kind of distract that and hide that a little bit, and if they can work that off play action, you could have someone who would really catch a lot of touchdowns. And the Vikings haven't had a lot of success in having a wide receiver that has double-digit touchdowns in a season. It's something Stephon Diggs never did.
Right on. I'm kind of looking for more of the big-bodied receiver who can go out there and out-physical someone for like a deep ball and that kind of player. I think that's what would fit with this team really well, because sometimes the risk is so high when you get like the smaller, shifty backs, the Diggs, the Percy Harvins, to start running all those gadget and trick plays. Mm-hmm. Because you know that they have the potential to break something like that, but I'm really over the end arounds and the sweeps and all of that shit.
Again. Can we stop that?
Can we just not? Like, we know we got Adam Thielen. He can run a couple of those a season, and like that's okay. He can kind of make that work.
The slants, Michael Thomas.
Yeah, there you go.
Pick up 6 yards every catch and break records that way.
Well,
you guys are interested in the topic there. Do you want size? What are you looking for? Size would be my thing. I mean, I just want a massive guy like a DK Metcalf who can do both. But honestly, with the way the NFL is, and maybe I have recency bias here, and the quarterback there in Kansas City is obviously legendary. But I want speed, man. I want a burner. We've never had a consistent burner since Randy Moss. And for me, if you can just break that coverage, you're going to draw double coverage a lot, and I think that's going to open up more for the other guys. And
here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, here's the thing about if you get someone like Adam said, if you get like a one-trick receiver who's just like a speed outside guy, do you trust Kirk Cousins to take that chance to throw those deep passes like that? And the only reason I bring that up is because he is like such a secure quarterback, I don't know if you would consistently take down the field chances. You know what I
I don't
mean?
think he'd do it consistently, but I think once he lands one of the, he always got to get his 130+ yard pass a game, and the defense would be like, shit.
If he can get a little confidence in that receiver, because we've seen Cousins force deep passes to Thielen and Diggs, especially when he knew that he could give them a chance to make a play on the ball. The problem in this draft is that the more I watch a lot of these smaller, faster wide receivers, the less I see them willing to fight for the ball.
Yeah.
There's a lot of finesse players, speed and finesse. And I think of the Minnesota Vikings as being a tougher team than that. So I don't know if they'd be a good fit in both on the field and the locker room. So for me, I'm looking for that tough player that, T. Higgins could use a little bit of help on his route running. It could be crisper, but you know what? It'd be in the right place to work on it. He'd have the right people in the locker room.
That's good.
Thielen's an excellent teacher.
Well, that's a great segue, man, because I wanted to talk about this, and I've seen a couple mock drafts. Forgive me, I'm trying not to make this lengthy, but if we don't go in the first round, there's just a great value pick at a different position. Maybe there's a defensive end that we absolutely have to have. And they haven't – I think the highest they've done in a while is Danielle Hunter in the third round. They don't spend first, second-round picks on DN. So we have to address wide receiver early. We have to. Think about this, guys. Everybody keeps saying, well, we lost Diggs, but we have Thielen. Thielen was hurt last year. If Thielen goes down, we have B.C. Johnson. That's the next guy up.
And it's not like Thielen's injury last year was something super minor. He had back issues.
And, the hamstring and the back, we have to address this. And I'm even willing to go and say we have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. I wouldn't be mad if they picked a wide receiver in the first and the third round. I wouldn't be mad. This is the depth to do that with here. You have to account for this because almost every season there's that one injury for the Vikings, and you're like, shit.
I expect Minnesota to double up and at least corner and wide receiver in this draft.
You have to.
I'm expecting it.
I wonder if Spielman will do that thing that he likes to do sometimes, where he will target 2 players from the same school and bring them in. If he'll do that at wide receiver,
mention that because one of the guys that I have taking here corner is from TCU, and one of the guys that's projected to be really good around where we'll be at is from TCU, and he's a wide receiver from there. So that's
interesting. That's an interesting thing to look for.
Another interesting thing is if the Vikings still want to shop a quarterback, they could go really early with a quarterback. They could, if one of the top quarterbacks starts falling, they could take them because
how far
Kirk Cousins' contract extension does not have the no trade clause anymore.
How far would Tua have to fall?
How far would Tua have to fall for Minnesota to be like
to go get him? He'd have to be he'd have to be past 10, I would believe. They're not going to go in the top 10 to go get him.
I don't think top 10.
Needs. But if it's now, 12 or 13 and he's still there, they would have to at least pick the phone up, wouldn't you think?
I would think.
Possibly.
Maybe. Are you thinking that maybe they would trade Cousins, Adam?
I'm saying it's not out of the realm of impossibility.
Cool. That, to me, would mean full-on rebuild.
Because why would you take that clause out of a contract? I've been trying to figure that out for a while now, and it's just not making a lot of sense to me.
Man, that left the whole room quiet. Like, what?
I didn't think that either. I was thinking for insurance.
Because they were talking about, I saw an article about the stupid idea of trading Kirk Cousins for Deshaun Watson. And I was thinking that's not even possible because of his contract. And the more I went back and looked into it, and I kept reading some of the details, I'm like, this contract extension Cousins signed, there's not a no trade in there anymore.
That's crazy.
So I don't know what's going on.
I'd love to fleece the Texans for Deshaun Watson. That'd be fucking awesome. That's the right guy to go after if you're going to try to get a deal on something. Jesus.
So yeah,
I personally don't think that'll happen, but I mean, fuck, man. Stranger things have happened.
I don't think so, but there's got to. That's the thing that Adam is playing into my head now. Is what's the reason behind that? Because they're all in on this guy. Kirk Cousins fits everything that Minnesota wants. With what Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer want. That's the guy that you build in a lab for them. No off
The
the field.
Vikings have made my jaw drop before on draft day. When they said Anthony Barr, my jaw was on the ground because I didn't ever, that was a name I never even considered.
None of us talked about Anthony Barr. I remember Vikings Twitter and Facebook shit itself when we drafted Anthony Barr.
I remember that very specifically that you bring it now. I was at a draft party. I think I told you this guy on the show before. And I had CJ Mosley because we needed a linebacker. And I said the same thing. I was like, where the hell is Anthony Barr? Where did he play? Oh, okay. He's at UCLA. Never mind. That's funny. That's weird. That's the first pick in the Mike Zimmer era of all the guys.
And he pounded the table for him.
That's such a Mike Zimmer pick, though. I mean,
it is. It absolutely is. And we're going to see some more of those weird edge rushers that are kind of undefined finding their own roles in the NFL now. Because
Isaiah Simmons, he's close to my home. Clemson is – I love the Tar Heels, and I'll die for them. But good Lord, if I had to pick a team, it would be Clemson football. Guys like that are what the NFL is going to go to. That's such a hybrid. You don't want to – you can line him up on the edge. He can play in coverage. He's played nickel before in a couple of plays. It's like whoever's out there, just you look out and you're like, I don't care what position that is. I keep seeing this guy. Who is he and what does he do?
Because I remember back during the start of that Mike Zimmer era, during that draft, I just kept looking at Barr and I'm like, that's not a defensive end. He doesn't fit in as a pass rusher in the defensive end in a 4-3 very well. And then they drafted him and used him stand up at linebacker, and they had his running back speed out there, using him to cover receivers and rush the passer. And it was just something I had never considered. And you know that the whole time that Mike Zimmer was watching film on him, he's like, checking the little boxes. Yeah.
Turned out to be a good pick, too. He's still here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I still have this weird idea that the Vikings are going to start to implement some 3-4 techniques into their defense, and that's the reason why they brought in Dom Capers, was to implement some 3-4 looks into the Vikings 4-3 scheme. So,
see, I don't think that. I think we're going to see more NASCAR.
What do you mean by that? Speed package?
I think we're going to see more of the bigger defensive tackles being taken out in a lot of situations just to have extra pass rushers. And I think that if we do that, the Vikings are going to need to invest in pass rushers. And we will know a little bit more about what this plan is if Minnesota does look at defensive ends or speedy linebackers early in the draft.
I mean,
the team
either
is still
way,
trying to figure out its own stuff because it's got a new offensive line strategy, and they're still trying to draft personnel.
Right.
The personnel in there for that. They got some new defensive line coaches and defensive strategies they're trying to implement. So they're going to need some new personnel, new ideas for that. So a lot of the conventional thinking for what the Vikings have done in the past, it just goes right out the window. We have no idea.
Either way, I think you're looking at the Vikings looking for a more dynamic defense.
I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you guys. Last year, I pounded the table. I mean, you guys did too, but I mentioned this many, many times, that the most underrated thing of last season was Gary Kubiak coming on. Yeah. This is going to be the most underrated thing this year. Mm-hmm. Anything that's going to help Mike Zimmer refresh and give new ideas for the defense, it's already been really good and really consistent for the most part since he's been here. I love this signing so much, and I am super excited to see what happened, because think about he was there when they won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, right? Dom Capers.
Yeah.
That's the only time that they've won a Super Bowl, because that's the only time Aaron Rodgers has had a defense. I'll defend him, man. They usually don't go big free agents. You know, they do everything in-house, blah, blah, blah. They don't have good defenses there. But
go
ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say, you go back to that Monday night game that we watched, the replay of the Vikings and the Packers.
Oof.
Packers, they could not get to Brett Favre, and it's not that the Vikings had that good of an O-line in that season.
Yep.
Packers didn't have shit for defense. So it's been that way for a while now. Anyway, continue.
I know Kyle Smith has to be a little excited about the Vikings picking back up on some extension contract deal ideas with your favorite safety there.
Oh, Anthony Harris?
Yeah.
I just love a good story, man. I love a good story of a guy who comes in. He's the defensive, for me, kind of Adam Thielen for the team. earned his way back in. He played. I
Mhm.
mean, he's been balling the hell out, and I want him to get paid. I know he wants to feel valued. All these guys want guaranteed money, and I don't blame him for that. But yes, I am happy. That is a good call, and I'd love to see him stay because I think as Harrison Smith gets older, with how good Anthony Harris has started to become, that'll help Harrison Smith still play at a very high level, and that makes me happy because if he can play as good as he has been for 5 more years, I mean, the guy's got to be considered later, maybe not first ballot, but he's a damn good safety. Throw him in
the
the Hall of
Pioneer
Fame.
Press says that they're starting to get kind of close on the numbers. And if you can get kind of close, usually you can shift some guaranteed money around, work out some cap hits. You can make things happen. And all it takes is getting in the ballpark.
I think we'd all like to see Harris back in Minnesota.
I would love to see him have. You know what? I'll make a bold take right now, and this is not what I want to happen, but what I would probably say the safer decision. You guys probably agree. I'd rather see Harris get an extension than Cook. I don't.
Depending on the numbers, of course.
Depending on the numbers, but here's the thing about Dalvin Cook. You can find a running back replacement for him. Like, I know that he's a bulk of the Vikings offense, but you can scout smart, draft smart, find a running back.
You don't have to take a running back in the first round anymore unless you have Adrian Peterson there again.
Or if there's that generational talent. If Saquon Barkley's there, you take Saquon Barkley.
Absolutely.
Right on.
But that's the thing that, I've learned over the last couple of years being too is running back it's taken a weird shift to being a hybrid. Like Christian McCaffrey, I think he earned every dollar, and I think that was smart because he's so young.
He got receiver money.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And he should. I mean, he's pretty much a receiver. But
yeah,
there's safety is not. If there's one part of the defense that you don't have to have the most blue chip talent at, it's safety. You got to have good corners. You got to have a good pass rush, and then in the middle you can hopefully work it out to be even. But with the talent that we already have at safety, I'd rather secure that up with the defense, which is already pretty much the heart of the team. I feel like with this system and this scheme with Kubiak, we could find another running back here. And I love Dalvin Cook. Don't get me wrong. I love the kid.
Oh, I do too. I think we're all big Dalvin Cook fans. But I still feel like
there.
I was just going to say, I still feel like I have the same question I did last year with Dalvin Cook.
Yep.
Can he play a full schedule? And now we're tacking extra games on top of the regular season.
And that's the thing too. I wouldn't be mad if they extended him, but I don't. He has to understand based on where the business side is. They could give him guaranteed money, but it's not going to be a record-breaking contract.
If he thinks he's going to get McCaffrey money, he's nowhere near.
There's no way. He had a great season last year. He was still right at or outside of the top 5 when it all was said and done. So right. I'd love to see him get guaranteed money, but it's going to have to be at it's going to be at a cheaper rate. That's for sure.
Top 7 running back money. That's probably about where he's going to be.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not like Melvin Gordon and we give him a decent offer and he tells us to kick rocks because that didn't work out for either one. I know other teams would nip at the bit to get Dalvin Cook, but unfortunately in the way the game is now and how pass heavy and everything is, you find another running back, man.
We're talking about this right now, and I think it's kind of weird because I've been reading about some players who have been already talking about staging their holdouts for the social distancing on their workouts and stuff like that.
Jamal Adams. That's so funny.
You're holding out, but you're not going anywhere. You're not really required to do anything. But you're just saying, okay, I'm declaring that I'm holding out.
You're just not going to turn on a webcam when you're doing the workout that you would be doing anyway.
Right. And it's not like they're going to stop working out. They're just trying to send the message. But I get what it is. It's just kind of silly to think about.
Yeah, in the current climate, it makes no sense.
I heard that today in the New York area that I'm living on Long Island now. I heard that they were talking about it because they cover the Giants and the Jets here. And I laughed so hard when I heard that. I was like, this is a real thing? Oh, this is for real. And it's a marquee player. But it's also the Jets. I would not want to play for the Jets. Adam Gase is just he's weird.
The number of players who just don't seem to want to play for the Jets. Or plus the number of players that go and have a workout and have a meeting and then leave and never sign there.
Rewind 10 minutes back to Anthony Barr.
I was just going to say, have you ever heard of a player doing what Anthony Barr did to the Jets?
More money to come back.
Kirk did the same thing.
Yeah, It's like they go there and it's like, I just have a bad gut feeling about this. I don't
have
want to
no
do it.
idea what's going on in those meetings.
Remember that one time they wrote an article shitting on Kirk Cousins, and then we went to New York and beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, they were so mad. Come on, guys.
I don't blame the Jets for being mad. They could have had a good quarterback, and I believe in their quarterback. I think they've got a talented young quarterback that can give some time to develop. I think they're going to be all right. But they need more leadership. They need more direction. It's not always just about the talent on the field. Look at the Atlanta Falcons. They have so much talent, and the coaching staff just couldn't put anything together.
The problem is no team wants to take the time to develop. And you push players on the field before you should.
Everything is work now.
Yeah, you don't want to develop your quarterback anymore. You want to put him on the field immediately and then let them try to sink or swim.
Yeah, not every team's going to be like New England, where you plug in a guy and then he stays there for 19 years.
Yeah,
right.
That's not going to work, you know.
Go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Not many teams get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, we go from Ponder to McNabb. Good stuff.
Good God.
To Webb.
To Matt Castle.
Josh Freeman is in there somewhere.
Oh.
Although I will be interested to see if the Patriots can take another quarterback that's just kind of average, have an awesome season, and then trade him away for a buttload of picks.
Here's a shout out to my best friend here too, because like I'm close to Connecticut and Massachusetts. Shout out to my best friend Greg, longtime Masshole and Pats fan. He's like, I don't want to. I heard these rumors that we're going to trade up. He's like, tank the entire year, go completely against Bill Belichick's ways, and go get Trevor Lawrence. And I told him, I was like, if you guys get Trevor Lawrence, I'll go to Foxborough and burn that stadium down myself. I promise I'll do it. You can record it now, and I'll go to jail. I'm going to jail for arson because that's bullshit, and I'm not going to have that. They could. That's what's nuts here. We have so many quarterbacks that are great. Joe Burrow had like the best season ever by a quarterback, which was weird because we watched Tim Tebow in college not that long ago. And then the kid coming out next year looks to be like Peyton Manning 2.0. They're saying he's that good. I've watched him a bunch. I think he's super talented.
That's what's so fun about football is every year it's like there's like new talent coming in that you can just refresh any team with.
I got a question for you guys. Speaking of that, this just popped in my head. Sorry to interrupt. So we were talking earlier. Wasn't it you that said? Did you send out the Wonderlic scores in the chat earlier?
No, it wasn't me.
Did you
I
guys
didn't do it?
I got a text from someone talking about Wonderlic scores, and
It wasn't us.
Nope.
Maybe it was in.
What other podcast are you on that you're not telling us about?
I don't have enough time for that. But they were saying that Tua got like a 13 on the Wonderlic, which is really bad. But they said
I don't know.
For context,
what's good and what's bad on that test? I don't know.
When you score 10 or less, that's like close to being illiterate.
Oh.
But for context, Blaine Gabbert scored a 42, and I think the highest you can get is like a 50. And yeah.
So it's not.
It's supposed to be like an intelligence test for them. So that was really weird. I read it in like a comment or something on Facebook.
I mean,
they didn't include the guy who had the highest score because he's not a top prospect. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you shout that guy out? He's got the highest score, but it won't draw in clicks because they don't know who he is. But the point I'm asking for that is there's two quarterbacks that are nationally known, and they're not like the biggest winners, but they were both in championship games. Jake Fromm and Jalen Hurts are going to be around in the mid rounds. Would you guys like the Vikings to take a look at one of those guys?
I think that if the Vikings go quarterback this year, and you can make a strong case for them based on our depth chart wanting to look at a young quarterback to develop underneath Kirk Cousins, even if you're saying that Kirk is still going to be our long-term answer, you still want to have a player that you develop underneath him, even if you just like, well, we're going to trade him for picks later on. I think that, you're definitely looking at a quarterback in the mid-round from Minnesota.
I will take an unknown mid-round quarterback as the backup over what the Vikings currently have.
Yes.
Can we find those at 7-Eleven in Mankato? Along with those corners that Mike Zimmer seems to know about?
Maybe.
Because, that game against the Bears was brutal.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Thanks for bringing that up.
I'm hurt all over again, Adam.
Yeah, here we are. All right, I'm going to shift to the guys that I was mentioning earlier. So, for the context of what I'm going to show you, the Vikings have the number 22 and the number 25 pick. In between are the Patriots right after us, and then the Saints, and then we're back again. I feel like the Saints could probably steal one of the positions we want to look at. They're pretty set in their seconds. They're probably the most loaded team, minus like San Francisco, in my opinion. But they could take a wide receiver. They could take a corner. They might need a linebacker. I don't know. But the two guys that I saw that were constantly in talks that I wanted to do a deeper dive on that weren't the biggest names, even though I wanted to pick those. We'll start with corner here. I found Jeff Gladney from TCU. And I'm going to play some highlights in the background while I talk about him because I want to look like I'm cool for a minute. He's from TCU. He's 5'11". He's 191 pounds. And I really like this kid because you can see some aggressiveness in these guys. And I'm sitting there like, man, this guy's really he's got this stuff together. You can show some of these highlights here. I don't know who put this together, but he played some decent name guys. He likes to go after the ball. He's very smothering. He's not the biggest in size, and that's my biggest knock on him. He's 5'11", 191 pounds, but he's fast. He kind of has that turnaround speed for like Trey Waynes-ish, I like to say. He's covered some decent wide receivers, though. He's a first-round prospect. Denzel Mims from Baylor, he's a bigger guy. Right here you see him taking a pick six back. I'm not sure who that team's against, but he did cover CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma, and he had – I don't know if he was covering them the whole game, but CeeDee Lamb had like 2 receptions that game. And that's arguably the top 1 or 2 receiver that's going to go off the board. So him and Judy are up there at the top. But I don't like his size, but if I can say this, and this is not like a professional term or whatever, but he's just a dog, man. I love watching this guy go around and just fly to the ball. He loves to get his hands on the ball and disrupt, which is something I absolutely love. And I think he'd be a good fit here. I just don't like that he's a little shorter.
Yeah, like the former Vikings coaches used to say, you can't teach size. So it's kind of a little bit rough there, but I do agree with a lot of what you said. He's got really good football instincts. He's got a nose for the ball. He's got this desire to just take the ball away, not just make plays. He's always looking to make the big play.
He's got
but
moxie,
he's not going to sacrifice.
I just love his moxie, you know?
Yeah, he's not going to sacrifice his technique to try to get a pick six or anything like that. He plays smarter than that. So I like a disciplined player who's aggressive, and I think that he could be a good fit in Minnesota.
I don't think necessarily he would start right away, but I think that if somebody went down, he could probably fill in and get his shot. I feel like he'd have a big chip, and I just like the way he plays, man. So go ahead, Kyle. Sorry about that.
You can't teach size, but from what little I was watching, it looks like he plays bigger. Like he plays bigger than what his measurables are, and that's always something that like a positive that you want to look for in like a smaller guy. And he actually looks like he's got decent hands for a corner. Like I know the knock on most corners are that they can't catch,
right.
But he looked like he was doing a good job of getting his hands up and like
that's gotta be
passes.
so frustrating for wide receivers too. You think you're going to get the ball, and then he's just there every other play when you get targeted, and he's just in your face. And I really like that. I'll tell you guys too for in the chat. I really wanted to do Antoine Winfield Jr., but I saved the bias on that because I don't want to get my hopes up. I like him a lot. I think he's a good little Swiss Army knife. You could rotate and in different spots and different packages. But I liked Gladney. I've seen him many, many times mocked to the Vikings at 22. So that's cool. Adam put this in before I talk about the wide receiver I looked at. There was a couple of mocks out there that had the Vikings combining picks and jumping up to steal CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. I don't want him to do that. I know you guys don't want. There's too much talent for this team to go out there and take that risk because historically we've made the wrong decision. Now I don't think that'll necessarily go that way in this class. I think they're all really good, but just stay where you're at and get a value pick.
Have you ever seen a mock draft that accurately predicted this team is going to trade up and draft this player?
Isn't it crazy? They're like weathermen. They can be completely wrong, and they're still there every year getting paid millions of dollars to give out stuff that's not accurate.
And all it takes is that one trade. Then their whole mock is thrown completely off.
Oh, that's right.
That's all it takes.
That's right.
Yep.
That's the other thing that's going to send these guys
Because you
into a
can
panic.
you can't mock when there is going to be a sudden run on like quarterbacks or wide receivers. If there's all of a sudden like some teams that go for a position and then another team panics and thinks they have to trade up to grab another player before there's not any left, like you can't predict that. That's part of what makes the NFL draft so fun.
I don't think anyone's ever won that $1 million draft challenge where to accurately pick all the first round picks in order. I don't think anyone's ever won that.
It's never
impossible.
going to happen. I think that's harder than the NCAA bracket for the tournament for March Madness. I think it's just
especially
as hard as
that. Underneath the old CBA where players were guaranteed like the Sam Bradford contracts. Where players wanted to trade out of those, but since they got rid of that shit, and you can see teams trading actively up into the top 10 now, it's impossible to mock what's going to happen.
This is such a good question here. Oh my goodness. So if you have a shot at Winfield Jr. and Diggs at 22, which is a very, very good possibility, who would you take?
Diggs ain't coming. Vikings are not drafting Diggs.
That's the thing. He's a better player than Winfield Jr., but that relationship seems to be tainted. And I think that's so stupid too. Like, that's just my opinion.
It is, but it's also like the Texans. They had David Carr, and then they didn't draft Derek Carr. It's like it's stupid, but I get it.
I don't take either of them.
I knew Adam was going to say that. I knew it. Adam's like, who else is available?
Yep. Check the board.
Winfield is a second round. Winfield is a second round talent, right?
Yeah, I've seen him in mocks going to the Chiefs, the 49ers, and some other places. I've even seen one where he went to the Packers.
Yeah.
But, it's very late first round, early second round, so we'll see where he ends up. He's a good player, though. Really good player.
He's a good player. He's definitely a good player.
It all depends on if Mike Zimmer viewed some tape on Winfield and likes what he sees and thinks he can use him in certain spots, he won't hesitate to draft him. But I don't know. I don't see them kind of reaching for that kind of player at that point. I think that there are better cornerbacks, better wide receivers, better interior offensive linemen available in the draft at that point, and I think those are all kind of bigger needs right now. Because if you're drafting Winfield, you've got to be looking at him as a nickel corner, or because at this point you've already got your starting safeties because you got one on a franchise deal and you got your all pro at the other spot. So I don't know. I don't see the versatility if you can't use it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Diggs is widely scouted like in the top 5 at corners, so I think he's better because we truthfully don't know if Winfield Jr. is a safety or a corner. He can play both, so that's a plus for him. He could play.
I think Diggs gives up way too many big plays. I think he can make big plays, but I think that he's so erratic as far as his ability to cover and his mistakes mentally that it's just too much of a gamble to have him on the field a lot. And it's his aggressiveness and his mindset and his recovery speed isn't quite what you want from a cornerback when you're trying to mirror routes of a really speedy receiver. I don't know if it's footwork or what, but he just seems to not have that initial closing burst of acceleration that we saw from Trey Waynes even. Trey Waynes would try to close that out, but couldn't.
I don't know why, but I just feel like he's going to go to Baltimore. I just have just a weird gut feeling where it's like he's going to end up in Baltimore.
Who, Diggs?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he'll be off the board by then, but I thought that's why I had to clarify. I think if anybody could and they like a chess piece, Winfield could go there. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
He's a nice little piece, and he'll be right at the end of they'll be right up there in the later part of the first round. I think Diggs will go before Winfield, but they're both good players. They both have Viking ties in a very distant way. So
I was reading that Diggs' draft stock had fell too.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them are going in the first round.
Yeah,
it must be older stuff that I was looking at.
It's possible. Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
this draft, you never know.
We're all just guessing, but
past the top couple cornerbacks, it's kind of like just a a messy slew of defensive backs that it's going to be teams just based on their own preference. And
Yep.
at that point, you're just kind of taking the guy that you feel fits your team best.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think Diggs. I'm just kind of picturing in my head Mike Zimmer going off on Diggs for playing a loose route, or loose coverage, just to try to bait a throw. I'm picturing it in my head, and it's just making me mad.
Well, that's a good thing about one thing, that if Diggs didn't have any hard feelings because of his brother, I don't think Nick Saban said many nice things to him while he was there too. So he'd have two really hard ass coaches that he would kind of be used to. That's very true.
Right.
Let's shift over to this wide receiver that I took a look at, because I kind of like this, and I'll give you a weird reason as to why. But let's look at wide receiver Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. According to Walter Football, he's the number 8th receiver in this draft. Maybe we could pick him up in the second if we get lucky. I don't know if anybody wants to take him around. There's so many good wide receivers. But one reason why I like this guy, and you can watch some of this, and I'll try to drag this out so you guys can watch these highlights. There's a deep ball catch that looks really good, and that was all play action, I believe. That looks familiar, right? Herm Edwards is the coach there, and he has a pro-style offense, so that helps out a lot, which I enjoyed. But Brandon Ayuk is 6'1", around 205. He had a 4.5 40, so he's not the fastest wide receiver, but he's got decent speed. But I like this. He has Diggs, and it reminded me of Greg Jennings qualities. After the catch, they can give you that one initial shake to try to get, an extra 5 yards. I really like that. He'll do good in the short passing games you've seen, but also pretty decent slants, like right there. And then play action would come in really well. I like his yards after the catch, man. I really do. And like there, he likes to dive forward a little bit. I hated one of the things I hated about Diggs, and I'm not trying to poop on him because he's not here anymore, but some of those times he would just kind of lay down like Kyle Rudolph had done late in his career, and I hated that. But I think he has the traits, man. I really like him. It's coming from a lesser known school, but I love that Herm Edwards is there because he has all the experience from the NFL.
I was wide open on that one.
he's a decent prospect, man. I don't like. He's just like Gladney from TCU. I don't like his size as much. I want a bigger guy.
I don't want to go against everything you just said based on this little clip, but I don't know if I see many splash plays from him in the NFL where coverage is going to be that much tighter.
No, I get that. I'm totally with you there. Just, for what we need and the position value, we got to have somebody else.
Go ahead. What round are you thinking?
If you want to get a good deal and he's there in the second, you could get him, but he's projected as a 1 or a 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very consistent player. You pretty much know what you're going to get with him.
Okay.
Good route running, good hands, ability to pick up yards after the catch. He's not, as you said, he's not really a flashy player. And I felt that way when I was talking about T. Higgins the other day on the podcast. He doesn't have that breaking speed after the catch. He's not going to get you the big, Sports Center 70-yard touchdown with
ESPN
40 yards after the catch and everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the Vikings.
Yeah, but there he is on
that's
special
going to move the
teams.
chains.
I mean,
yeah, it's like right there too. He could help you out if Mike Hughes or whoever is not in special teams for that play. Maybe beat him out. I like the kid. Like I said, I'm not trying to be like a smart ass or anything and just say anything obvious. I'm not doing that at all. But this is one of the reasons why I think he'd be good. There's a reason why he's like, the 7th or the 8th projected guy out of this big class. He's not CeeDee Lamb. He's not Jerry Jeudy. He's not Henry Ruggs. But I mean, most of those guys are going to be gone. And if you want to fit the need and maybe the corner you really wanted to get taken and you're like, hey, I really like this guy. He would fit. We could use
look
him.
at that vision on that punt return there.
It's pretty good, man. I wanted to go with the other guy from TCU. I really want the Vikings to land Justin Jefferson from LSU, but he is picking up so much speed, and he's a really hot name right now. I think he's going to be gone by 22. So
he could be the 3rd wide receiver off the board.
He may very well be. I know. I love Chris Sims a lot. I love his the boldness that he puts out there to put hot takes out, and he had him as his number 2 And it's been widely regarded that it's Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. And he said, no, I have Justin Jefferson at number 2. So I don't think he's going to be there. But yeah, I like this kid, man. He has a lot of effort. He shows a lot of heart when he plays. And maybe we'll see. It'd be great if you could snag him in the second. But if he was in the second round, he'd probably go in the early second round, I would guess.
You guys in the chat, if you can see the highlights that Kyle Smith's putting up, let us know if they're streaming well, if you can see them pretty clearly, because this is just something we're trying a little bit new this week. So yeah, let us know how it's working out.
ASU, there you go, Scott.
Worked really well on my end. I like having the
it looked great to me,
highlights
but
and
I don't know
stuff
how
like
it looked to the people at home.
That's really awesome. We are basically ESPN at this point because they're all recording from home too.
No big deal. We're Good Morning
No, there's no
Football.
difference.
Yeah, this is how all the sports organizations are doing their broadcasts. All the news organizations. I saw a weatherman on TV that was holding his cat just in his chair at home talking about the weather, and it was like, oh, okay.
Well, you know what I like is that just being nerdy for a second and talking about technical stuff. I like that we can play that and there's no copyright because it's YouTube and it's a public domain, and I don't have to do sound, so I don't have to worry about. I did it on Instagram like 4 years ago. I did a video with my dog from the military doing push-ups, and we had Red Hot Chili Peppers in the background.
You got a copyright strike, didn't you?
That down immediately. They're like, no, that is trademarked. So we'll talk over the highlights like they do, but I really enjoy that feature. So
I think what you just described falls underneath the Fair Usage Act, but the internet does not always see it that way.
Yeah, we got strikes for those Streaming Trees songs that we were using as our intro for a little while.
Yeah, even though we found that on public domain.
Right.
Scott brought up a good one here. Hey guys, remember Slick were once traded back in the first round. We're a total of 3 first-round picks. How many are with us now and lived up to their potential? It's very true, man. I liked Rhodes, and I love. That was a weird one. That's the weirdest draft ever.
Okay, that was worth it though. Rhodes had a good career from Minnesota. It kind of fell off at the
Floyd because he got injured. I never discount anybody for injury. So there was an injury. There was a really good Pro Bowl player, and then there was a whiff.
Rhodes was shut down corner for a while, and Patterson. I mean, he wasn't first round talent, but
you got a little bit of use out of him.
He contributed
in the return game, but. It was an anomaly, a hit, and a miss. So, whatever. I like the fact that it's bold, man. It takes balls to do that. He's still with us, though, so good on him.
The Vikings staff loves that fifth-year option, so if they can trade up into the first round again, they will try.
I love it.
I don't see why not. I mean,
I don't know if they have the draft capital to do it this year. They might have to take.
Do you guys have a bold
3 and a 6 or something to move back up to the 1? But I don't. It's possible. The Vikings do have the picks, but I don't see them doing it.
Do you guys have a bold statement in regards to this year's draft and what you think Minnesota will do?
Not particularly. No.
Don't be surprised if they go completely out of the norm and piss you off. I wouldn't be surprised if they got a defensive end or if the lineman is falling. I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of those picks goes for an offensive lineman. Do I think the value is going to be there? No. I have no idea what this team is going to do.
The last couple of years I've done pretty well on my bold picks for the draft, especially with the wide when I picked Daniel Carlson for the kicker. That was my favorite. That was my absolute favorite. And I love that he's still in the NFL and doing pretty well, but I wish the Vikings could have figured that out.
I don't have anything. Just be fluid with it. I hope personally, as Kyle Smith, general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, that they go and grab a corner and a wide receiver in the first round. I don't think they should necessarily stick to that plan because good players may fall.
Right.
That's why they have a big board. That's why they have grades but that's the biggest needs on this team at this moment.
Whether it's a corner, wide receiver, offensive lineman, it should be one of those 3, unless an elite player at a position starts falling. And if you've got an elite pass rusher that's still on the board when you're picking, you got to do it. And sometimes that'll happen. If a franchise quarterback that you actually believe is a franchise quarterback starts falling and he's available at your pick, you have to do it. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember how much crap that the Packers got when they took Aaron Rodgers when they had Brett Favre. I remember that.
I can't believe he fell that far.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nobody's mocking that now.
My bold statement, and it's not that bold, but running back as early as round 2 for Minnesota. I think as early as round 2, running back is potentially on the table because I don't think the team wants to be tied to Dalvin Cook and potentially him holding out for a contract extension. So I think you could be looking at as early as round 2, Minnesota going, hey, we're going to draft ourselves a running back. Worst case scenario, we have 3. Adam don't agree at all. And best case scenario is that like we can send Dalvin elsewhere and be fine without him.
I can't even sit here and think of a running back in this draft that the Vikings would kind of be willing to reach for at that point. I could see them taking one like starting in the 4th round or so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see them going early unless negotiations are just really going poorly with Cook.
You know, if that happens and negotiations go poorly, we could always call up Jerick McKinnon and see if he's around.
Right?
Let Alexander Madison take it and then just start rotating again.
We could get him back for peanuts at this point.
Committees are just rocking it.
He got paid when he was in San Francisco, even though he didn't play. So
the days of feature running back, it's just not really worth it anymore. When you look at the past Super Bowl champions, how many had that feature running back? It's not many.
Yeah, that's true.
And I love that Mike Zimmer wants to run the ball and, shorten the field, play the field position game, and have that solid defense. I get it. I absolutely get it. But these days, everything's kind of opening up a lot more. It's a lot more of an offensive game. You see a lot more praise going to teams that move the ball extremely well. And the Vikings are kind of falling behind there and losing another weapon in Stephon Diggs. Yeah, that hurts. And we're going to see Minnesota try to make up for that in this draft. And I don't know if they're going to be able to because their track record for wide receivers just has not been great. But my hopes are that they're going to do their research. They're going to grab that player that they feel fits really well. Hopefully having a few extra voices in management is going to help to kind of put a little bit more of a, I don't know, authority on the pick. But right now I'm nervous for Minnesota because of all the options available, all the positions available. But I'm optimistic.
It's a really important draft for Minnesota. I think that they have to hit on a number of key positions for this team. Yeah. If they do, that'll set the team up really well for the future. If they miss on some early round picks, boy, you're potentially entering into a rough rebuild for this team.
I mean, worst case scenario, we've been through this before, so strap in, guys. This could get ugly. I think they'll do good. There's a lot of talent in this draft. It's just, where do you want to go? And we don't know that answer because we're not in their war room and we're not in the meetings. But they have a plethora of options. So
one thing we haven't mentioned at all during this show is the 3 technique on the defensive line. That defensive tackle that's going to go opposite the new guy that they just picked up. And I've seen a lot of mock drafts mocking that defensive tackle to be going to Minnesota early. And to me, yes, it's a need. It's not a pressing need. But again, it's one of those positions where if the player falls that you think can do an awesome job there, you do make the pick if it's the best value pick for the team. I've done some mock drafts where I do a lot of the mock drafts games to try to figure out who might fall where and who might be available when. And when there's a defensive tackle that falls or an offensive tackle that falls, it really screws up my whole plan of trying to load up on at least one wide receiver and one cornerback early and then a second one kind of in between rounds 2 and 3. And the Vikings have a bit more needs than a lot of fans think, and it's going to be tough to fill a lot of those holes. But I do believe that the talent is available in this draft to fill at least most of those holes and then open up competition at others. But I just don't want to see I need competition at that left guard. I need them to figure out what's going on at right guard. I hope that they can. What I want them to do, I want them to sign Josh Klein back at right guard.
Yep.
Because that was good. That was fine. That was working out all right on the right side. I hated that they did that because the mistake wasn't there. The problem wasn't there. It was on the left side. And bringing in a guard to at least compete, sure, you got to go at least third round on that, in my opinion, if you want a good, talented player that's going to compete at guard. But then, like I said, you've still got 2 corners that you're going to need, 2 wide receivers that you're going to need, a defensive tackle that you're going to need. You're going to want a defensive end. And yeah, the Vikings have a lot of picks, but a lot of those picks are much later in the draft. And the Vikings have had some success on wide receivers later in the draft. So who knows? Maybe they'll hold off until rounds 4 or 5 to pick up one of those. I love the draft. This is one of my favorite times of the year. So I'm sorry I kind of get rambling a little bit, but I'm excited and I want to see a lot of this young talent come to the team.
We like it when you ramble. Thank you for that. I had to put this up here. Scott, I love you. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. We do not need a linebacker right now, even though he could be good on the edge. Also, money? Question mark. I don't know who's going to absorb that contract. They're going to give him away for that. I don't know, but we got too many other needs. Khalil Mack in purple would make my heart extremely happy, though.
He's no Ben Gettyan, that's for sure.
You know what? I'll give a bold take here because I saw it somewhere else, and it makes sense. We have 2 first-round picks, right? Patriots need a quarterback. Maybe they could use one of those and trade up, and it's like a wheeling deal. They take one of ours, they use theirs, they trade up to get a quarterback they like. What if we got our guard problem solved and that Joe Thuney thing actually happened?
That'd be something.
That'd be pretty
cool.
Yeah,
I could see Minnesota trading back one of their first rounders to another team that's a little later in the first round. I think a trade back is much more possible than a trade up, actually.
Absolutely. It's going to piss me off, but that'll work.
What if we trade Kirk Cousins to New England?
For what?
I have no idea.
Bill Belichick, straight up.
Yeah, for Bill Belichick. We're going to have 2 head coaches in Minnesota. We're going
to... No. I think you misunderstood that. Mike Zimmer, bye, Mike. He can go to New England. They'll love him.
We're going to turn Zimmer into the defensive coordinator.
Oh, my God. I think it'd be so fun. I can't even think of the fantasy land where that would ever work out.
The Lions would be after him as their head coach.
Yeah. I'd make a hell of an episode of Hard Knocks, that's for sure.
Yeah, speaking of that, you guys watch Hard Knocks, right? I don't.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I think it's entertaining.
So, how do you feel about the 2 teams on Hard Knocks?
I like it for this year only and specifically because they're in the same city. They're relocating for their new stadium. I think it's a smart move. Don't know how it's going to work, though. How are you going to tie in 2 stories from 2 teams from 2 different conferences that are in 2 completely different places? Not
more Hard Knocks.
Go ahead.
More Hard Knocks is good Hard Knocks.
Well, it's the same amount. I mean, it's just 2 teams, right? I mean, and the thing that I know is I know the NFL wants to try to find a fan base for the Chargers. I know that's what they want.
They should have stayed in San Diego. All the people in San Diego were pissed that they moved. Yeah, you know what would be great, guys? If the owner of that shitty stadium they had there, Qualcomm Stadium, I've been there. It was not impressive. If you just do like everybody else and stop being a cheapskate and get a good stadium, you'll bring people in.
I had a Qualcomm router. That wasn't good either.
Weird.
Look at those poor fans in St. Louis. St. Louis fans are just diehard for an NFL franchise. They were supporting the XFL. What were they? The Battlehawks?
Yeah, they were all in on the Battlehawks.
They were all in for the Battlehawks.
On the stadium out.
Yeah.
And then I get it because every time I watch Oakland play, it just made my eyes feel like they had cancer. Watching them play on a baseball field just made me want to rip my fucking hair out. But they're uprooting one of the most classic teams in NFL history and bringing them to Vegas for a money grab, and it just irritates the shit out of me, man. I hate it so much. Leave them where they're supposed to be. If you want to move a team, move the Jaguars, for God's sakes. You already have moved them to London anyways. I hate that, man. I hate it so much. No, Scott, Cam did not find a home. He will find a home after the draft. He still has medical issues. He's not cleared, but he's not cleared because of this coronavirus. That's the problem there. I think
part of me kind of loved
great in L.A.
Right. Part of me kind of loved the baseball field because it was so terrible in Oakland. That was so, that was so outdated.
It wouldn't have been bad if they were a good team, but they were awful and it looked like shit.
It was so dated and it was so Oakland. It just fit. It just fit them.
That's so right. You're so right, though, because if you look at the stands, there are all those aggressive fans that want to kill you if you were from the other team.
Yeah, I know.
There. I hate that for that fan base, man. I hate it so much. They want to do it, and that's the worst place too. I'm going on a rant right now because I just have something I have to be passionate about. Yeah. L.A., dude, Coward hit it on the head when he said this, dude. L.A. has Hollywood, music, film, all this other things. Do you think they give a shit about their sports team in L.A.?
Okay,
if you're not the Lakers, they don't care about you.
L.A. is a transient town. No one is from L.A. People move to LA. You're not going to have fans that are passionate about the LA Rams or the LA Chargers because everyone who lives in LA is from fucking somewhere else.
Yeah, see, that was a problem. That's why it was so crazy when you watched the last 2 years when they played at that stadium they were at. It was always an away game for most of those teams because all the other fans would come from all over. There's no fans there. They just have casual fans because that's what LA is, a cool and casual town. They're not a diehard sports team. That's why, my dad's a Chiefs fan, right? He's been a diehard Chiefs fan his whole life, and he went to a game last year, and he's like, yo, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I said, well, why? He's like, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's all they have. And that's just their entire town and life is about that team. They could care less about those teams in LA. Who cares? I mean, you're in the music and movie capital of the world, you know? I don't know.
The Lakers are the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's terrible and still sell out every game.
It's different because they're part of the culture. They're part of the culture down there. So that makes them different.
I just don't understand why they took those teams, man. They have good history for the NFL, but if we learned one thing in the last 20, 30 years growing up, the NFL is so greedy. All those owners, they just want that money, man. That's all they care about. Those TV contracts and sales. So I didn't know I was that passionate about Oakland, guys. Thank you for having this.
Yeah,
thank you for letting me get that out. I need to get that out, apparently.
We haven't even done the main topic yet, have we?
Who, Odell Beckham?
Oh, yeah, he ain't going to sign with Minnesota. That's our main topic.
Yeah, we hit on that very briefly, but there was a report out that and it came from a really odd source. Adam shared it with us, and I got my hopes up like an idiot, as I always do.
We all did.
There were talks of Odell Beckham coming to the Vikings for a 2nd and a 5th round pick next year. And then everywhere else that I heard on all the radio stations and all on Twitter, all the credible guys like Schefter and Pelissero and all that, they were like, that's not happening. They talked about it. I feel like now looking at it, I could be wrong. Watch what's going to happen. They'll sign him tomorrow because that's what always happens on this show. But I feel like what happens, that guy got a scoop from one of his sources, and he wanted to put it out there to get his name bigger, and then it just never evolved. Maybe I'm wrong there, but
how about Jay Glazer and his big, earth-shattering NFL story? 2 days worth of hype for it to be like, hey, this guy you've never heard of, unfortunately, has the same thing that the rest of the world has.
Yeah, but he even got trumped on that news because a player with a bigger name was revealed to have the virus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Von Miller, if you guys didn't hear, is he's in quarantine right now. Von Miller has the coronavirus, but he's recovering well. I thought that was
breaking news.
I thought that was really cheap, Jay Glazer. It's not the fact that it's not important news, but that you broadcast it like it was like some blockbuster trade, and then you got hype train off of a sickness. That's fucked up, man. Don't do that.
Also, it's like, okay, this thing is affecting everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone in the planet Earth. It's not breaking news that a professional athlete got it. I mean,
Right.
it is, but I'm not surprised.
I didn't like the delivery. That was what it was. The delivery was just very cheap for me. I don't like.
Yeah, I
didn't
wouldn't
have-
mind if it was just boom. Here's some news.
Like, hey, the center for the Rams or Chargers or whoever, he's got this too, but like the whole 2 days worth of hype, big news. Because like what Pat McAfee said, we are all hoping for news other than coronavirus right now. We're all hoping that like big news means like, hey, Rob Gronkowski's coming out of retirement and he's going to be going to play for he's going to Tampa Bay or some big trade. Odell Beckham to the Minnesota Vikings. Like, we're all hoping for something fun like that. And when it wasn't, it's like, oh, really?
Heck, I'd even have taken like a 4-team extension team over in our small NFL extension league over in Europe or something.
Yeah,
Give me
NFL
some news
Europe.
like that.
NFL is thinking about NFL Europe for the 2022 season or something. Like, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that if he would have just came right out and said it, like people just break news. Like one of the chicks that I really like, who's getting her name out there a lot the last season, is Diana Rossini. She's got sources now, but the Jets and a couple of the teams in the East Coast, because that's where she's from, they'll just break news because it's news to talk about. If Jay Glazer just put that out there, we'd be like, oh shit, the first NFL player got it.
That's usually what Jay Glazer does.
Right.
He will just like, that's why everyone I think respects him so much, is because he will just be like, hey, breaking news, I got this from my insiders. Here's what's going on. And he kinda ate some of his goodwill here a little bit.
Yeah. I didn't like that. But back to the Odell Beckham stuff. Sorry to shift on you guys. That we would have, if they, for what I mentioned, the 2nd, the 5th next year, if that would have happened, the Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion, would have absolutely hit a home run and won free agency. He is an absolute upgrade from Diggs, and that's not any slight to Diggs. Diggs is a great football player. Odell Beckham's a top 5 receiver since he came in the league. At any given time, it changes every year. Julio, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, but it's always Odell in the conversation. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. That was the name of the episode. I'm glad you guys brought that up. I wanted that to happen so bad. There was an 8-hour period where I was just praying this was going to happen. But,
just sitting there watching the Twitter timeline. Come on.
Dude, that's all I did at work was hawk Twitter, just waiting for it to come out.
Oh, yeah.
But
I did
the thing
too.
that gave me hope on it was, number one, he's had a troubled past, but that's not what bothered me. I think he's grown immensely from his first couple of years in New York. I think he really has shown like, okay, cool, I have to kind of like tone it back and be a team player, whatever. But the two things that there's a good and a bad here. The good is you have ties with Stefanski, so maybe he saw something there, and they just picked up a really good tight end from Atlanta. So they have a nice 2 tight end set. Their number 1 receiver is Jarvis Landry. They have a good running back. Maybe you don't need him. Maybe you find value and dump the contract, whatever it could be. That is a positive. But the thing that I didn't really think was going to work, he never wanted to go to Cleveland because nobody wants to go to Cleveland hardly ever unless you're from there. He wants to be in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami. He wants to be in a huge market. Minnesota is cold and it's not a big market. That really, I don't think that would be it. But I'm telling you what, if he comes to the team, I bet you everyone's narrative, because Vikings Twitter out there, you guys like to shit on every single thing that anybody ever brings up. If he comes to Minnesota, watch what the number 1 jersey sale is this year. I don't want to hear any of that crap from you guys. I was going to buy mine tomorrow if he would have came to the team. I would have ordered it immediately.
I had a customized one in my cart already. Not really, but it was
really
close to it.
I think it would probably have to be a first, or if we were in talks before of getting rid of Anthony Harris, which now it looks like we're not, it would have to be a player trade package. They're going to have to get the value for him. They're not stupid. He's a very, very good player, and he's still relatively young. So
it's Cleveland, so you might want to backtrack on the they're not really stupid part.
I can't say it anymore. You know what? I think the roster is there. I think they just made a stupid emotional hire partially in favor of Baker Mayfield last year for Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah.
Stefanski's going to come in there and run a tight ship. I think they're going to be fine. And I think they have a damn good roster. The only thing that holds them back, they have Lamar Jackson in the division. And now they're going to have Joe Burrow in the division. Like,
if they can get some good quarterback play and a little bit better defense, they could be good.
They could be a 10-win
But
team.
the hype last year, the hype just made
The hype killed
awful.
Cleveland.
Because think about it, they were 8-8, but they had some really close games. This is a 10-win football team easily, and I think with Stefanski coming in there, they'll be 10-6 or what is it, 10-7 this year if we're going to play that many games, whatever it's going to be. They could be a double-digit win team for sure, but I don't think their coach is that good. But there was a flirtation there for an hour. There was a fling, and I wanted that to happen so bad. But that's about it for the Beckham stuff. I've had this up here for like 20 minutes. So let's talk about this, and we can kind of round things out for the show. Scott Schwab, a favorite here on the show and always faithful in here every episode. Here, in all seriousness, the Vikings spend to trade Redskins for Trent Williams. What are we going to spend? Because I've kind of aired back. I really wanted this to happen at first, and then I'm kind of joining the Adam Carlson train on Riley Reif's not that terrible. People like to overhype his shittiness, and it's not really bad. He's average. He's not as bad as people want to say it. It's the left guard, as Adam mentioned earlier.
Trent Williams wants so much money.
And he's old. I don't care what anybody
on the
says.
decline.
He's old.
Even if he isn't on the decline yet, give him a year or two, he'll be declining.
Yeah,
Whatever they need to trade to get him, I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to trade Riley Reif and something and a pick, because you're not going to get it straight up. Although then you got the contract that you got to work out. It's just an absolute mess. There's a reason why a trade hasn't happened yet, and it's because working out with that contract, that trying to figure out an extension, trying to figure out compensation, it's just an absolute mess.
I don't
He
trust
wants a
anyone
long-term
with the
deal
name
with
Trent.
a lot of money and a lot of guaranteed money. And if you throw a 1 or 2 year deal at him with decent money and a moderate guarantee, he's just going to laugh in your face.
I hear you, Scott, too. He says he's only 31. Try to go for a 1 or 2 year, but that's the problem. The first part of that is only 31, but he's had a season away, and there was injury concern. I think the Redskins did him super shitty on that medical side of that, which is really shady for that organization and all anyways. 31's old in the NFL. I don't care who you are.
You're on the wrong side of the railroad tracks at 31 in the NFL.
But the other problem with that,
31
is the 1 to 2 year contract. These guys want love, and they want it now. Unless you give them a 1 or 2 year deal where the premium is guaranteed and it's through the roof, I don't know that he would sign it. Maybe he would because he's had such a bad time in Washington. But I don't even know if the guy's healthy enough to play now. I don't know.
31 for a lineman is like ancient.
Especially when the linemen suffer so many injuries with their knees and their backs. People don't understand how much toll their knee and back and ankle and foot take getting low in there and just exploding so many times. That's why you see so many times Phil Lodeholt having to retire early. I loved Phil. I thought he was a really good right tackle, a road grader, but his body couldn't do it anymore. And you got I loved Joe Berger, and he played quite a bit into his career. I think he retired at 35, 36, something like that. He had one heck of a career.
Something like that.
But he too, he said, my body is done.
Yeah. It's crazy too.
Fuck, Matt Khalil.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Matt Khalil was young, and he had to have knee surgery, and he was never the same after that. And Matt Khalil had a good rookie season until he had those knee surgeries, and he was never the same player after that.
Actually, I'm going to chime in there for a second, because Matt Khalil didn't want to have knee surgery. He kept wanting to do these procedures that were non-surgical to try to heal. And I think that delaying those procedures and playing on hurt knees, I think that is what did a really bad number on him.
That's a fair point, Adam. That's fair.
I know that a lot of people don't want to just go in on surgery and clean stuff up and get it all fixed up, and they want to try different approaches, but this is the NFL. I can't believe he gambled with his career that way.
Also, too, you got to think about the physical injuries, the pounding of the knees, the back, whatever you think. Think about how much of these guys. Who was the guy that we were talking about last week? I kind of wanted to tie these two together. That kid, is he from Iowa? And he mixed a drink together for months and months so he could gain like 80 pounds to be.
Oh yeah.
So think about that. The kid is trying to build his mass to be big enough to block these gargantuan defensive ends. And then look at a guy like, tying it back to the Browns, Joe Thomas. all pro left tackle. He's going in the Hall of Fame. But look at him now that he's done in the NFL. He looks like a Greek god because he doesn't have to eat 10,000 calories a day, and he's not massive.
It's crazy to see like Matt Burke being all like thin, and Jared Allen,
Chad Greenway.
Like, they all just kind of whoop right after their NFL.
Remember when Chad
and the muscular issues they have, but then the diet that comes in, like JJ Watt. When he stops eating the way he does, and he's going to shrink. And when he's going to look like Gronk, and we're like, you're still lean and muscular, but where's the rest of you?
Chad Greenway blew my mind. How he went from like Chad, like big built, like linebacker Chad, to a year later, he's like, I mean, he's still a big guy, but you're like, my God, that's how much weight they put on to play. It's insane.
They were like, oh, we got to get Joe Berger back here. I'm like, this ain't the same Joe Berger. He's already dropped like 40 pounds.
Doesn't it make you wonder why any of them put their body through this?
It's crazy.
Dude, I'm telling you,
for their future and entertainment.
That's the one thing that I preach to people, you know, the boomers I have to per se to pick on is, oh, they get paid millions of dollars to throw and catch a ball. Please go out there like Johnny Knoxville and Jackass and get one good shot from Jared Allen, and then come tell me about how easy they have it. Because these are gladiators, man. They're going out there to kill each other. I hate that. Shout out to Scott, though. I have to give you that in the chat. You've been very active tonight. Thank you for the good questions.
Yeah, shout out to anyone who is still listening to this.
Yeah, they're still
after an hour and a half.
In. Give a shout out to Skull Prod. They're always in here. Ryan Barnum joined us, having drinks and playing some video games. Thank you.
Oh, and we do want to apologize for our listeners before. We had a little snafu where our show wasn't available on a lot of other platforms. And we have gone and taken the steps to fix that. It may take a little while, but our where you listen to us will refresh, and all our shows will be available here on YouTube. Plus, the most recent few will be on Spotify and all the other locations where you usually listen to us. So thanks again for being so patient. We just kind of had a little situation where we had to figure stuff out, but Mr. Smith took care of all of that.
Got you guys.
Right on.
We had to go back and pay our annual bill. So now we can have everything. We have all this room to keep putting these out. Like, I'm an Apple guy, like Kyle West. Now I can go on my podcast app and I can have it there instead of, I would rather you guys watch it on YouTube because I like a visual myself and I'm just a YouTube fanatic, but however you want to consume us.
But
well, I guess we shouldn't downplay
are ugly.
We broke our bandwidth rating so that people are listening to us that much that we went above our bandwidth. So thank you to everyone who's listening to us everywhere, because we shouldn't downplay that people are listening to us. So thank you so much. But we have expanded our bandwidth, and so now we should be able to come into your homes or phones, laptops, or wherever you listen to us on a regular basis.
Rotary phones.
Yeah.
The WWE hotline. Call us on the Purple People Podcast hotline.
Shoot me an AOL message.
What was the number? Was it the WCW hotline that they used to talk about all the line at him?
Oh yeah, they had that. Hulk Hogan had his own hotline for a little while.
Yeah, remember it was Mean Gene Okerlund used to talk about the WCW hotline. Oh yeah. I want one of those. Let's get a Purple People Podcast hotline.
I absolutely love it.
I went to a WCW event when I was younger, and they drove a school bus out of the entrance and crashed into the ring, and it was the most entertaining thing ever for 11-year-old me.
I'm jealous of that. That's awesome.
All right, so here's the deal for the draft right now. The podcast, us guys, we don't have something in stone as far as what we are going to be doing for the draft. I don't know if Mr. West's working or Mr. Smith will be available, but hopefully
what day
we'll be
is
able
the draft?
It's always
like
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep.
Thursday night, Friday night, and then all day Saturday.
Like next week?
Yeah, coming up like a week from now.
I work Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I don't know, Mr. Smith, if you're around, we could probably even go live to talk about some of the picks while they're happening if you want.
Dude, you read my mind.
Do Discord, we could do.
I'm not mad about it, but I would love to I'm not kicking you out, Kyle. You can obviously always join.
Oh
It's
no,
just
no.
like this is so much fun because we've never done it. I would love to have you guys built up. We'll go live at like pick 17. We'll talk about what's happened. That sounds like so much fun to me. My plan.
If you guys can go live, you should do it because that's an awesome idea.
Well, the good thing for me is starting Thursday all through the weekend, I'm off. So I have no plans and obviously nothing's open. So we should do that. If you guys want to do that, I'm down.
We might be able to even get some other friends of ours or something to just join us and talk about draft picks and stuff like that in here. That's one of the beauties of this StreamYard that we use is that we don't need to have people signed into certain accounts or anything like that. We'll be able to have a nice, good chat going.
I can send you a link and you can hop in whenever. But that sounds good. Scott, I'm answering you in the chat, but I'm answering now as well. It's on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep, round 1 is Thursday.
So we could jump in at like pick 17 or 18, and we could talk about what's shocking so far, and it'll give a good build up. So it'll be about half an hour before the Vikings pick, and then kind of go from there. I'm so excited about it, though. That's a great idea, Adam. Good for you.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope. Hopefully, we can get it all figured out so we can have some fun and just do our thing and get it all done. On that note, I do want to thank everyone here for listening and hanging in here with us. I know that we've been putting some stuff up on social media every once in a little while. Mr. West, I think, has been putting up some stats and some pictures and stuff every once in a bit,
occasionally, when I remember how to Facebook. I remember how to Facebook.
And I know we asked quite a bit, but
I remember that we have a podcast. Oh, yeah, that's right.
If you guys want to like, share, and subscribe, that's cool. We appreciate it. We're always wanting to help this podcast grow because we love interacting with you guys. And the more people we can get in the chat, the more discussion we can get going, the more questions we can answer, the more fun we can have. And who knows, maybe we'll start having 2-hour shows in the future. You never know. But for now, I think we're going to call this show.
You get us quarantined. You get us quarantined, and we can't shut up.
It's true.
It's true.
So thanks again for everyone listening, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.